Hey guys, Dave from Wolfhard Hobbying here, and today we're going to take a look at painting the sword for the Avatar. I'm going to go with kind of a molten or a very heated metal kind of look for the sword. This is going to be a very easy process as I am going to be using my airbrush and I am using a Badger Patriot 105. Now, most of the times you would want the energy source coming from closer to the hilt and cooling off maybe near the tip. But for this one, I'm going to be doing it the opposite way. I'm going to have most of the energy kind of at the tip of the sword and cooling down near the hilt. So I'll be working with my brighter colors up there and working with darker colors down here. So as you can see, I do have my paint loaded up in my airbrush. I am using Mephiston red, thinned out quite a bit here, and it's just going to be a simple base coat of starting near the hilt and working my way up. You could base coat the entire sword in Mephiston red, but I don't find it necessary, as leaving some of the primer through would give a nice transition, especially once we start working in our brighter colors, because when you are doing a gradient and you're releasing less and less paint, getting closer to your next color, that dark can really help blend the dark red with the brighter colors. So as you can see, I went about halfway up the sword with this, making sure I get a lot more of a solid color near the hilt. Now the hilt's just going to be painted gold, kind of like what I did on the bracer. So as you can see, I also did the other side before recording, just to test out the color. And so I'm just going to work the color about halfway up on the other side. Now, if you don't have access to an airbrush, then you can easily get this effect done quickly through a wet blending technique. So as you can see, as my hand is in the way, but you can see how I'm not pulling that far back on the trigger, and that's just releasing a little bit of paint, giving me that nice gradient. Even up into the black, you can see the gradient start to form there. So we're now going to come in with our next color, which is going to be our orange. So I'm coming in with Minotaur's Citrus Orange. It's a good medium orange. You could use Jiraco Orange from Citadel, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So I want the transition to happen kind of around where my reds end. And how I'm going to achieve this is I'm going to start kind of heavier at the tip of the sword and move my way down, and as I'm getting closer and closer to my red, I'm going to ease up on the trigger of the airbrush. So as you can see, it's a very light coat, so I'm probably going to come in and do a second coat over top of that, as you don't want to be spraying too much onto the airbrush. Onto the sword from the airbrush, as it will start leaving pools of paint. So just what I'm doing here is I'm kind of just lightly going over with just pushing some air and a little bit of paint out every once in a while. Now again, when you are working close to a model like this with the airbrush, you want to have a low PSI. I believe I'm on a 15 PSI, and I have very, very thin airbrush paint. I've even thinned out the Minotaur. So here I kind of put it on a little bit thicker than I would have liked, but it didn't mess up my transition all that much. Now you'll want to also try and keep your gradients as equal on both sides as possible. It will be kind of hard to do that even if you are wet blending, but as close as you can get it would be better, just so that it looks like there's an even heat source going throughout the sword. So here I'm just putting on my second layer, as airbrush paint doesn't take a long time to dry. So as you can see, we're getting a nice bright orange. I kind of moved my mat out of the way there just so you can see the orange a bit better. So as you can see, it's really cool at the bottom, and we have that transition coming up. Another thing you could do is, once that is dry, is do an orange or a red wash just to tie that transition together a lot better. But I'm doing a different technique near the end of the video, so I don't really need to do this. So next, I'm going to be coming in and I'm going to be adding Flash Gits Yellow to the paint mixture to get kind of a mustard dark yellow kind of look here. The camera brightens it up a little too much. You could use Averland Sunset if you're wet blending, but since I already had thinned out paint in my pot with the orange, I'm just going to mix in the yellow. So this one, I'm only going to be doing about the tip of the sword, kind of where those the second break is, and you've got the point. So I'm just kind of working this color a little bit up that way. Sorry that my hands get in the way quite a bit, but I am working close to the model, so I'm trying to keep my hand out as much as possible. Again, I am very sorry. So as you can see, again, nice yellow gradient on the sword here. Just kind of let it dry for a second just so you can see it a little bit better on how dark that yellow is. And again, I decided to go a little bit farther down the blade than I initially intended, but it gives us a nice overall color. Mixing the yellow with the orange gives us a good transition. And again, I'm not pulling too far back on the trigger, as I don't want a ton of paint coming out, so that I can get a nice even coat. And when you pull just a little bit back on the trigger, you're only letting so much paint out if you've never airbrushed before. So it gives us a nice good gradient and allows you to control how much paint is coming out. So again, that's why you want to work in with thinned paints at a very low PSI, so that you have a lot of control. So as you can see here, we got a nice bright yellow tip, and you could leave it at that if you wanted to. I'm going to come in, and as I said, I want my energy source to be kind of concentrated on the very, very tip of the sword instead of near the hilt. So I'm going to brighten up that tip just a little bit more with this next color, which is just going to be straight Flash Gits Yellow. Thinned out quite a bit, not too much. As I'm putting my paints into my dropper bottles, I thin them out anyways, so I don't need a lot of airbrush thinner. So this part here, I've decided to go in with as far down as just at the tip of where the runes start on the blade, so not too far down, just about halfway down the tip of the sword. So just to give you a better look, you get a nice transition, and again, wet blending, you can get the same transitions in the blade, but you have to play with wet blending quite a bit, and I'm not that good at it, so this is why I use my airbrush. So got both sides done, and you could leave it at that again, if that's the effect that you want to go for, but I'm gonna just do a little bit of edge highlighting on the tip of the sword to give it kind of a glowing effect, as that's where a lot of the heat is coming from. So to get this effect, we're just going to come in with some straight white. I'm using Vallejo's white, but any white will do. You could even mix white with yellow and build it up. It's up to you how far you want to take that. So I'm just doing an edge highlighting here over just the edge of the sword, and I'm going to be painting the tip of the sword, this white. It's not a huge step in painting the sword, but it'll just give us that kind of glowing effect that we may want. Again, if you're just going to leave it at the yellow, then you can do that as well. So as you can see here, I'm just adding just a little bit of white and working it into the tip, and working it out from the tip, sorry. So you could leave it like that. Again, I am going to paint all the hilt and these runes. They're going to all be gold by the end when we're ready to put them together. Now this step is very optional for you, but because I want it kind of look like it's a heated metal, I'm going to come in with Citadel's Lead Belcher. And just using a sponge technique, I'm just going to be stippling this color on. Not focusing a lot of it near the tip, as I want that to look like there's no metal there. It's all just a heat source. So I'm going to just be lightly stippling up there. Whereas closer to the hilt, because I want it to look like it's cooling down, I'm going to be putting on quite a heavy stippling of this. If you wanted just kind of like a molten lava look, then you could do this step with black, and you could also be a little bit more selective with a paintbrush on where you want that black showing up. So again, just making sure I get quite a bit of the metallic down near the hilt and working up closer to the tip and lightening up how much I'm stippling. But that's it, guys. That's how I am painting my Eldar Avatar sword. Leave some comments in the comment section below. If you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you like how I do this. If you have better suggestions, you can go over to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/wolfhearthobbying, and let me know some tips and tricks that I could improve on. Also, I will have a link to my Patreon account in the video description below if you guys want to show some support that way. Either way, guys, I want to thank you all for watching the video and have yourselves a great day.